Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers, and welcome to Women's View on Ahlulbayt TV, a show discussing Islam through the voice of women. Now, today is the day of Arba'een, and we do send our condolences to you all. This day is a day where the Ahlulbayt returned back to the holy land of Karbala to visit Sayyid al-Shuhada, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. So on this we do mourn. Now, before we start our show today, I have a few announcements to make. During the show, we may show live feed from Karbala as, you know, today is the day of Arba'een, so many of you want to see the commemorations and the mourning that's taking place in Karbala. So during the show, we'll go to Karbala, inshallah, and show a bit of that as well. And also after the show, there's been a slight change. Instead of the maqtal being shown by Osama Al-Attar, now we're going to have a live English feed program live from Karbala, which has the presence of Sayyid Mehdi al-Mudarrisi. So if you want to watch that live show, inshallah, from the holy land of Karbala, stay tuned after Women's View and you can catch that. Now, today's topic is taking your experiences beyond Karbala. For many people, the day of Arba'een marks the end of mourning for Imam al-Hussein, and many people after this point do not take the lessons that has been learned during these 2 months, during Muharram al-Safar, and they do not take it beyond. So now, inshallah, we'll be touching upon some practical tips, some, you know, how can you take the experiences that you've learned during these 2 months beyond Muharram and Safar. So inshallah, we'll be touching upon these points. I'm your host, Zahra Al Alawi, and today with me is Sister Fatima. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Now, we had a show last week, and we, you know, talked about your experiences in Karbala, because of course you went with the Karbala team this year, and we talked about the experiences that you had in Karbala. So today I want to speak about, because last week we ended where you returned back, and we talked about your experiences on the day of Ashura. But for many people, when they return back from ziyarah, it, you know, that connection or that spirituality ends. And just before we begin, I have an email from one of our sisters that emailed in last week, but I didn't get the chance to read out her email. So let me read it out now. And really, this email really showed me how the reality of how when people return back from ziyarah, or the experiences that some people may feel. Now she says, Assalamu alaikum sisters. First of all, I wanted to say what excellent shows you have been delivering these past weeks and months. I have been a viewer since the start of this show. My issue is I have been to Karbala many times, but when I return to London, I find it very hard to maintain the spirituality I have gained during the trip. Returning back to my original environment here in the US erodes all spirituality I have, and I quickly adapt the lifestyle I had when I left to ziyarah. How do I overcome this and make sure I maintain the feeling of spirituality throughout the years? Please do keep my name anonymous. Now, this is a sister from the US. So many people may go through this when they return back to ziyarah. You know, they quickly adapt back to their lifestyle. How can someone, you know, how can someone continue the spirituality?
It's such an amazing email, and I'm really happy that the sister is sharing this with us, because she's not alone. I've heard this from many people while being out there and talking to all the Zavars, all the young sisters, you know, to the grandmothers who bring the family to Karbala. And I can actually relate to the sister, because I remember having been for ziyarah, not Karbala, having gone to Mashhad and coming from the west. And, you know, I used to go, obviously it was planned and you'd attend, but not knowing who I was visiting. And that is purely my own ignorance. You know, we were taught, but I wasn't paying attention. We were occupied, you know, as children in other things, you know, and sometimes you don't value this knowledge that someone is kind of trying to give to you. And I look back and I think, you know, why is it that I wasn't paying attention? And I can only say from my experiences, people have shared the same with me. And a lot of the time it's not knowing who you're going to visit. Who are these people? Why are they there? And why are there our imams? And really kind of going from understanding what the actions of what you're doing, actually taking a step back and understanding why you're actually there. I don't know the age of the sister and her background, but you know, it's what a privilege it is to be able to touch the holy grounds of Karbala. And I don't, you know, there's millions out there who are, you know, counting days and nights and putting time together to be able to go there. So you are privileged. You've been called there for a reason. That's you know, that's one thing to the side, that you've been invited, and you said you've been several times. So I'm just wondering, before going, and do you, when we say spiritual cleansing, and we've talked about this quite a lot in other shows, you know, we spiritually try to keep ourselves ready, but maybe we've not touched on what that means when I said that I spiritually prepared myself. So before going for ziyarat, I think it would be a good idea to actually take time away. I know you have to attend work, school or whatever, but maybe get some basic books of the tragedy of Karbala, starting from the beginning. You know, you have a lot of simple books, and the internet, mashallah, is a wonderful resource it is to understand, you know, think about historically, and you will know when it touches your heart and you think, actually, this is my Imam, and he gave up his family, his life, his blood, everything that he had for me to be here. And maybe that will start, you know, if you think about it from a historical point of view, and once you feel the connection and you think, oh my God, you see how that the personality gave up what they gave up for you to be here, you're automatically connected. There's a connection between you and them. You do your salah, you do your prayers, you fast. There's a reason why you're doing that, and you have to kind of step out of it and understand why you're doing it. So I think some simple steps of actually understanding the personalities and maybe following the trail of events, and then you will come to the Holy Land. And you know, once you've done this, and I can only imagine that, you know, you take one step towards Allah, Allah walks 10 steps towards you. It will warm your heart, and it will break you down, and you will understand why you're there. And I found refraining from a lot of the things that maybe you do, or if there's friends you have, non-Muslim friends, or if there's activities that you're involved in that you might think that takes away your focus, refrain from them and keep yourself pure. When we say pure, we think you know, your thoughts are not interrupted by the superficial society, or if you're living in the States, I can imagine how difficult it is. But really refraining and withdrawing and concentrating who you are, and reciting the Quran maybe every day, reading the hadith from our imams, and understanding their thoughts and who they were. And I can, you know, put my life on it that once you understand, you know, the immense knowledge and the personalities, how big they were, you will automatically they will gain your respect, which they already should have, but you will find that connection and Bismillah, and I think that's a good start.
Definitely true. I mean, you gave a lot of good advice, and there's one point you mentioned that I think I've seen this happen a lot, is when people return, I think there's some kind of distraction in their life which is taking away the spirituality, be it friends, like you mentioned, or the environment, or, you know, or the atmosphere that you socialise in. I think that when someone comes back, they need to identify the things that are actually moving them away from Allah, and then kind of eliminate them from their life, and then continue forward. But that's true. Many people, I feel this as well, and I think we have other emails from viewers as well, that when they go, it's not knowing the status of the individuals you're visiting. You don't know the status of the imams. That's why you don't kind of feel the spirituality to the extent that you should be feeling. So some really good advice there.
I think practically also, and I always take it away and bring it to real life. I think if the sister's a student or she's at university, when you meet someone, say you have a special guest at school, and I remember when we were at school, they say, you know, so tomorrow we have a visitor, and then what do the school do? They make you understand who that visitor is, maybe read his books. So when they turn up, you are aware of who they are and what they've written. So in an assembly, I'm taking from really basic, from a 5-year-old child. So tomorrow we have a writer in the class. So they read about the writer, don't they? They read about what they did. Or if you're taking at university, you have a scientist arriving, you will read their literature, read who they are. Why is it that they're there? What makes them important to be, you know, invited to your school? Think about it like, you know, someone is given a high status, understand why they're given the status. You know, God forbid, I'm comparing to, you know, human beings, which there's no comparison whatsoever. But really understand, and out of curiosity, something else that we would touch on is how we're spending our time. So, you know, we think about the youth of today spending their time on other things. Socially, our time is occupied quite a lot. A lot of our time, you know, even in the Quran, it does state that our social surroundings, you know, are a part of who we are. More, you know, they take off over a lot of our time. So if you if that's the area that distracts you, then focus onto that. Then cut it down and say, you know, this is my social environment. If I'm spending 60% of my time Googling, God knows, and if you're on Facebook and Twitter and whatever, maybe kind of separate those and say, how can I use these mechanisms, these resources, to gain closeness to my deen? So think about how you can, when you come back, and think, you know, how can I use these resources to my advantage? And if you're associating with someone, or if there's some activity that you're involved in that you think, you know, is this taking me towards Allah or is it taking me against? So maybe kind of breaking it down and identifying where your time is being spent, And if you eliminate the bad, all that's left is, inshallah, the good.
That's true, inshallah. Really good advice there. I just forgot to mention, I know we got other emails from our viewers as well. I forgot to mention to the audience, this is a live call-in show. So if you would like to call in with your views or opinions, then please do call in with the number on the screen. Alternatively, you can email us at women'sview@ahlulbayt.tv. Inshallah, I've got my mobile here, so inshallah we'll read out your emails instantly in today's show. You know, there's so much to discuss here because this is a really important factor. But I want to ask you, when you go on ziyarah, how can you sort of bring back something to remind you of the ziyarah? But before we go into this question, we have a call on the line, so inshallah we'll take that call first and then inshallah get back. Assalamu alaikum.
Hello, wa alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, sister. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I've just been watching your show and mashallah, you're doing a really good job and we really enjoy watching it.
Thank you very much.
It's just a bit of advice. I was just listening in. One of the callers was saying, or there was an email actually, where the lady was saying that she feels that when they come back from the ziyarah, they're not really what's the name? They can't really get any spiritual value from it. And bit of advice. I mean, I went to Sham ziyarah mashallah a year ago. And I think it's really important to get your foundations right before you go. Make sure you do all the research, you know, do your namaz regularly. And inshallah, I think that will help you when you come back to carry on that sort of life. Unless, I know a lot of people, they go from home and they're not really ready. They don't wear their hijab. They don't read their namaz regularly. And I think that's really important. I think you need to get it right before you go. So when you come back, you don't need to get back into new routine. Go back to your old routine. There's nothing new.
Yeah, definitely. That's
definitely true. That's you know, very good points mentioned as well.
Definitely, yeah. Thank you very much for that great advice. I agree. I mean, it's important. Your foundation is all that you have. But that should, you know, if you are invited to go and you have the opportunity, I'd jump on board. You know, who knows what changes might come out of that. Definitely. So making the niyyah is definitely important to actually go, and the foundation is you know, without that, where would we be? So that's fantastic advice. I hope the viewers...
Yeah, definitely true. I don't know if this is still online. I think the line finished. But definitely... Oh, you are? All right.
Yeah.
Basically, I wanted to say that it's very true, because as we discussed in previous shows as well, it's about... many people do not find this... They don't kind of... how can I say this? Prepare themselves to go to ziyarah. Many people don't go through the preparation and prepare their soul and their you know, for the ziyarah they're going through, and they go there not knowing the status of the imams as well. So yeah, that's very.
I mean, I'm just giving some of my personal experience. That's what I did. I've done the research and I felt I was ready for it. I did prepare myself 2 years ago, but unfortunately, you know, my call wasn't there. I didn't get invited. So, but I had that time to prepare myself and do the research and to get to know where I was going, why I was going, who I was going to visit. And I found it much easier to carry on when I came back. And I enjoyed it a lot more as well. I think that's really important as well.
Are you planning to go for more ziyarat? Has that inspired you to go again?
Definitely. With my family commitments, but I have the need to do so go for life, inshallah, next year. We'll see if my you know, wish gets granted. Inshallah.
Inshallah, we join you as well in ziyarah, inshallah.
All together.
Okay. Thank you. Nice talking to you.
Thank you very much for calling in. Thank you very much. It's very true what the sister said, because I've been in groups as well, and you find that many people that prepare themselves to go to ziyarah or, you know, gain the knowledge about the person they're visiting, they find it more impacting upon their souls and impacting upon themselves. And I think the sister mentioned you know, a really great point, that the importance of preparing yourself and educating yourself before actually going on ziyarah. So it's definitely, you know, advice probably for the sister in the US as well, if she's watching today, and other people out there.
I think the other part of that is, when you do go, put some goals for yourself. When I return, I want to be in this state of mind. You know, we talk about routine. A lot of people don't have routine. And, you know, but if you, while you're there, because I think when you're during your ziyarah, you're at the best point of, you know, of your purity, and inshallah, you know, you're around such, you know, environments that you will always be at your best. Inshallah. So, you know, if you're going to commit yourself to any kind of change of routine, do it there. because you're in that kind of frame of thinking. So maybe, you know, while you're on the road, while you're there, jot down all the things you want to change.
Definitely.
And then once you've accepted that those areas are worthy of change, when you come back, then you have to act upon them, inshallah.
Inshallah. Definitely true. We have some emails coming through, but just before I read the emails that have just been coming through now, we have an email from a sister, and I want to read this now because it's related to this. I don't want to go back and then come back to this issue. It relates to what the sister said, the caller said, and what we've been discussing. She says, Assalamu alaikum, Sister Zahra and Fatima. Great show, sisters, and condolences to you on this sad day. I wanted to ask you a question. I visited holy sites previously, but always feel as if there is a seal on my heart. I always feel as if I cannot mourn or feel that people around me, or feel what people around me are feeling. Maybe there is a disease in my heart which is preventing me from mourning. What shall I do? Samira from the USA. It's another sister from the USA.
Yeah.
So I think this is really, it's, you know, it's quite sad because many people, I think, as the sister said, and I hope she's watching now because she sent this email in the morning, but many people, I feel like they want to feel, they want to mourn, they want to feel the sadness that people around them. And I don't know the exact situation of the sister, but she says, I see people around me crying and I'm not crying. Is there a seal on my heart? So how could you answer this? Inshallah, we've got other emails coming through as well.
Yes.
But
First of all, you are there. Ultimately, you're there. You have an opportunity to make use of this blessed environment. So I'd be very positive about it and really call out to our imams. That's what they're there for. Ask them that, you know, to soften your heart, to make you connect with them. And, you know, everything requires a certain level of kind of perseverance, reciting the Quran, supplicating, reading the ziyarat. I find sometimes we read it in Arabic, we don't understand the meaning. So learn it in your mother tongue. So something that, you know, I read in English, but although my Farsi is not great, whenever I read my ziyarat, I get my, you know, someone to translate. If I translate it, it's like someone closer to me speaking to me. So break those barriers that you feel that are creating a seal on your heart. I find that, yeah, understanding what you're saying and not rushing through your ziyarats. And sometimes I feel like, you know, we're in a rush, we want to read we want to move on and do next time on. But really take it really kind of word by word and line by line and understand why you're pledging your allegiance and who was there before you. And sometimes the history of the place that you're standing, and you think, who's been treading on this soil? Yeah. And you know, it makes you think, I'm worthy of it. And you know, it is perseverance. It's with anything. If you're trying to tune into an instinct of yours or that spiritual side of you, you have to really pay attention to it and work on it. And first of all, you're there, and it's up to you how you want to use the situation to your advantage. I find reciting the Quran is amazing, and it really helps, especially when you're in this environment. And don't be distracted by, you know, shopping, this, that, and the other. These things I find are great distractions. And just, you know, spending a lot of time around the air around the Dhari is intoxicating, let alone reading and reciting. So just sit down and really absorb who they are, and inshallah, with time, the seal that you speak of, you feel that is removed. But you have to really work at it. It's with polishing anything. You know, if you have, I don't know, a gold ornament that it's rusted, how hard is it to get it sparkling again? Look at the effort you need to put, the labour you need to put in that. Think about I think your heart, and the same. You know, if you really want that connection, you really need to polish it. How do we polish it? You would polish it with supplications and ziyarats and make the niyyah and really speak to your imams, and they're there. So
that's definitely true. I mean, we're going off for a break now. I know we've got callers in line and we have emails coming through, so inshallah we'll address them after the break. But just before we go after the break, I think it's definitely true what you said, and I think that at the same time many people think it's a historical event that happened years ago, and I think imagining what exactly happened in terms of how the Imam got killed. The Imam, if I say, got killed so brutally, and if that was happening in front of you, I think when I imagine something, it's more real and it's more effective upon my soul, rather than thinking it's a historical event. But we have to go for a break, inshallah. We'll come and discuss more of this, inshallah, after the break. Please do join us in a few minutes, inshallah. We'll offer a few minutes, so see you after the break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers, and welcome to Women's View on Ahlulbayt TV, a show discussing Islam through the voice of women. Now, today is the day of Arba'een, and we do send our condolences to you all. This day is a day where the Ahlulbayt returned back to the Jami. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Now, we had a show last week, and we talked about your experiences in Karbala, because of course you went with the Karbala team this year, and we talked about the experiences that you had in Karbala. So today I want to speak about, because last week we ended where you returned back and we talked about your experiences on the day of Ashura. But for many people, when they return back from ziyarah, it that connection or that spirituality ends, and a slight change. Instead of the maqtal being shown by Osama Al-Attar, now we're going to have a live English feed program live from Karbala, which has the presence of Sayyid Mehdi Al-Mudarrisi. So if you want to watch that live show, inshallah, from the holy land of Karbala, stay tuned after Women's View and you can catch that. Now, today's topic is taking your experiences beyond Karbala. For many people, the day of Arba'een marks the end of mourning for Imam al-Hussein, and many people after this point do not take the lessons that has been learnt during these 2 months, during Muharram al-Safar, and they do not take it beyond. So now, inshallah, we'll be touching upon some practical tips, some, how can you take the experiences that you've learnt during these 2 months beyond Muharram and Safar. So inshallah, we'll be touching upon these points. I'm your host, Zahra Al Alawi, and today with me is the holy land of Karbala to visit Sayyid al-Shuhada, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. So on this we do mourn. Now, before we start our show today, I have a few announcements to make. During the show, we may show live feed from Karbala, as today is the day of Arba'een, so many of you want to see the commemorations and the mourning that's taking place in Karbala. So during the show, we'll go to Karbala, inshallah, and show a bit of that as well. And also after the show, there's been